23:14. The Strait of Hormuz. Total darkness suffocated the waters, but inside the Combat Information Center of the destroyer USS Michael Murphy, tactical screens painted a violently bright picture. The Iranian commanders thought they had just orchestrated the perfect ambush, a masterclass designed to send a billion-dollar American warship to the bottom of the Persian Gulf. They unleashed a swarm of 76 Shahed-136 suicide drones skimming above the waves at 115 miles per hour, packing enough explosives to tear the ship's hull into shredded cheese. But folks, here is the lethal error the enemy made while they were busy high-fiving in their bunkers. If you launch a saturated strike assuming the US Navy will panic and empty its multi-million-dollar missile magazines on cheap fiberglass, then you are about to receive a violently expensive lesson in modern physics. Stay focused, because in exactly 8 minutes, this unstoppable swarm is going to evaporate into burning debris. Deep inside an underground bunker along the rugged Iranian coastline, the mood was nothing short of a victory parade. The Revolutionary Guard commanders were already pouring the tea, staring at their glowing monitors as 76 green blips crawled relentlessly toward the American destroyer. In their minds, this was the ultimate asymmetric masterpiece, a textbook execution of swarm tactics that had kept Pentagon planners sweating for a decade. Their math seemed flawlessly cruel. They were forcing the United States Navy into a corner, banking on the absolute certainty that the Michael Murphy would have to exhaust its entire magazine of $4 million SM-6 interceptors just to survive a wave of cheap, $20,000 flying lawnmowers. Once those vertical launch cells clicked empty, their 5 Zulfahar fast attack boats, loaded with sea-skimming cruise missiles, would rush in for the kill. Most casual observers watching this play out on a radar screen would see an overwhelming force about to swallow a lonely ship. But those of you with sharp tactical minds know exactly what these commanders forgot to calculate while they were busy celebrating their imaginary win. The Michael Murphy was not fighting alone in the dark. Cruising at 25,000 feet, an E-2D Advanced Hawkeye from Airborne Early Warning Squadron 125 had been staring down the throats of those Iranian launch rails since the very first drone left the coast. The Hawkeye's ultra-high-frequency radar acted as an all-seeing eye, quietly feeding a continuous stream of targeting telemetry directly into the destroyer's Aegis combat system through secure Link 16 data networks. In mere milliseconds, the Baseline 9 computer sliced the 76 incoming threats into perfectly organized kill tiers, stripping the swarm of its only advantage. Down in the combat center, the tactical action officer looked at the saturated tactical displays and issued a chillingly calm order that would rewrite naval warfare: hold fire on the vertical launch cells. If you ask why the commander refused to unleash his $300 million magazine, I will tell you an unbelievable military secret. The United States military does not play games where the enemy sets the rules, especially when those rules are written with cheap commercial electronics and glued together fiberglass wings. For the past 10 years, the sharpest minds at the Pentagon have been kept awake by a very specific, nightmarish math equation playing out right here in the treacherous waters of the Persian Gulf. Let us break down the brutal, unforgiving economics of this airborne ambush. The 76 Shahed-136 loitering munitions, currently screaming toward the hull of the Michael Murphy, are essentially flying mopeds packed with 80-pound fragmentation warheads, costing the Iranian regime a measly $20,000 apiece. On the other side of the tactical ledger, you have the absolute crown jewel of American naval air defense, the Standard Missile-6, a hypersonic kinetic interceptor that violently rings the taxpayer register at a staggering $4 million per launch. The Iranian master plan was never just to sink a single ship. It was to financially bleed the United States Navy, forcing them to trade a Rolls-Royce for a rusty bicycle in every single engagement. If the tactical action officer panicked, broke a sweat, and ripple-fired his vertical launch system, the mighty destroyer would absolutely obliterate the incoming drone swarm, but the financial cost would be a catastrophic embarrassment. Even more terrifying, it would leave the warship's missile magazine completely bone-dry, effectively stripping the billion-dollar vessel of its primary defense mechanism just as the real killers arrived to finish the job. Lurking just below the radar horizon, perfectly shielded by the massive electronic clutter generated by the incoming drones, 5 Iranian Zulfahar-class fast attack craft were already throttling their engines and accelerating to a blistering 40 knots. Their launch tubes were heavily loaded with deadly Nasr, 1 anti-ship cruise missiles, patiently waiting for the exact moment the American warship ran out of those expensive interceptors to ripple fire a lethal spread into a defenseless hull. The physical reality of the situation inside the combat center was intensely suffocating, with the swarm rapidly closing the distance and the ambient blue light of the Aegis tactical displays reflecting off the unblinking eyes of the radar operators. The digital clock was aggressively ticking down to impact, forcing a split-second decision that would either save the ship or hand the enemy a massive, humiliating propaganda victory on a silver platter. If you were the commander sitting in that darkened, air-conditioned room, watching a relentless wall of hostile contacts threaten to tear your majestic ship into burning shrapnel, would you blindly pull the trigger on a $300 million defensive spread and pray the fast attack boats missed? Or would you trust a radically different kind of math? While the American commander was playing a brilliant game of 4D chess with the Pentagon's pocketbook, the scene unfolding on the Iranian side of the Gulf was a pathetic masterclass in premature celebration. Aboard the 5 Zulfahar fast attack craft, aggressively cutting through the dark waters, the crews were practically throwing a floating parade, convinced they were about to make international headlines. These high-speed henchmen were speeding toward the kill zone with throttles wide open, completely drunk on the illusion that the mighty USS Michael Murphy was currently blinded, terrified, and frantically dumping its multi-million-dollar magazine just to stay afloat. In their narrow tactical minds, the chaotic radar clutter generated by the cheap drone swarm was an impenetrable shield, a flawless cover allowing them to slip right up to the helpless American warship and deliver the fatal blow. You could almost see the Iranian gunners high-fiving in the saltwater spray, mentally counting the shiny medals they would receive in Tehran for sinking a billion-dollar symbol of American power. They arrogantly assumed the Persian Gulf's tight geographical constraints had finally trapped the heavyweight champion of the world in a phone booth. They genuinely believed the United States Navy was paralyzed by the fear of an asymmetric street fight. But folks, here is the lethal twist that makes this a devastating humiliation. If you think the most powerful military in human history sails into a choke point without a terrifying, budget-friendly backup plan, you are about to witness a historic slaughter. Arshasandan Shabafed. Range to the swarm is officially 8 miles, and the Iranian commanders are practically tasting their historical triumph, blissfully unaware that the tactical action officer aboard the Michael Murphy has just flipped the economic chessboard completely upside down. Instead of dumping a $300 million magazine of standard missiles into the night sky, the destroyer's flight deck had already unleashed its own terrifying counterpunch. Banking hard into a flanking position and slicing through the humid Persian Gulf air were 2 MH-60S Nighthawk helicopters perfectly positioned to execute a masterclass in budget-friendly annihilation. Beneath their stub wings, they were not carrying the multi-million-dollar air-to-air missiles the Iranians were praying for. They were loaded with standard 19-tube Hydra 70 rocket pods. But these were not your grandfather's unguided rockets blindly firing into the dark. Each of these munitions was fitted with the Advanced Precision Kill Weapon System, a brilliant laser guidance kit that literally screws right onto the middle of a cheap 2.75-inch rocket, transforming dumb artillery into a surgically precise sniper bullet. At a mere $30,000 a shot, the APKWS is absolute pocket change for the Pentagon, instantly neutralizing the enemy's only perceived advantage of cost-effective swarm tactics. The Nighthawk's gunners calmly laze the incoming Shahed drones, painting the dark sky with invisible targeting beams that locked onto the oblivious Iranian fiberglass. Simultaneously, the Michael Murphy activated its high-energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance system, a weapon so advanced it sounds like absolute science fiction to the Revolutionary Guards. Mounted high on the ship's superstructure, the Helios system did not require a single ounce of expensive gunpowder. It silently projected an invisible 60-kilowatt beam of concentrated directed energy that aggressively swept across the remaining bulk of the loitering munitions. The United States military had completely stopped fighting the cost exchange war with million-dollar interceptors, opting instead to fight it with dirt-cheap rockets and the infinite ammunition of electricity. The thermal truth of this absolute technological superiority is about to get very, very loud. Stay tuned, because the physics of destruction in the next 30 seconds is about to change the tactical map of the Persian Gulf forever. In less than 90 seconds, the Nighthawks rippled off 38 APKWS rockets, each laser-guided dart finding its mark with horrifying precision. 38 Shahed drones violently vaporized into blinding orange fireballs, scattering burning fiberglass across the dark waves. Simultaneously, the silent, invisible beam from the Helios system swept across the remaining fractured swarm. There were no dramatic tracer rounds, just the instant, catastrophic failure of cheap engineering. The intense 60-kilowatt heat-melted plastic flight controllers and cooked internal wiring in milliseconds, causing 22 Shaheds to nosedive in unison, plunging into the Persian Gulf like fiery lemmings. The remaining 16 drones that managed to slip through were violently shredded by the destroyer's phalanx CIWS and SeaRAM missiles. The air was officially clear. But wait, here is the fatal error the Iranian Zulfahar crews made while speeding toward the kill zone. Assuming the Michael Murphy was overwhelmed and blinded, the 5 boats surged forward to firing range. They did not know that directly above them, cruising in complete radio silence, was a pair of F-35A Lightning tubes. The stealth fighters did not emit a single pulse of radar, instead using their Barracuda electronic warfare suites to passively track the heat signatures of the boat engines. The F-35S effortlessly beamed the exact GPS coordinates down to the Michael Murphy. The Iranian crews were dead men floating before they even armed their missiles. 2320. The Michael Murphy's Mk-45 5-inch gun swiveled aggressively to port. Controlled by the automated computing system, the gun began hammering 70-pound high-explosive shells at 20 rounds per minute. The automated gun systematically walked a precise line of high-explosive waterspouts directly through the panicked Iranian formation. 3 Zulfahar boats were blown clean out of the water, disappearing in giant plumes of steam and debris in a span of exactly 14 seconds. The remaining 2 aborted their run, turning violently north in a desperate retreat toward coastal waters. 2321. The engagement was officially over, clocking in at exactly 8 minutes of absolute technological dominance. The once crowded radar scopes inside the Michael Murphy were completely scrubbed clean, leaving the shipping lanes perfectly secure for Allied tankers. The smoking wreckage of 76 suicide drones and 3 shattered fast attack craft were now sinking to the dark bottom of the Persian Gulf. But here is the most humiliating part of this nocturnal slaughter for the commanders back in Tehran. The mighty American destroyer did not even bother to alter its navigational course, and its vertical launch cells remained brimming with untouched multi-million-dollar interceptors. The Navy effortlessly swatted away a saturated kill chain, keeping its expensive powder dry. Most casual viewers will look at those burning fragments and see just a failed ambush. But those of you who understand the brutal math of modern warfare will see a strategic nightmare unfolding for Iran. Here is the lethal twist that makes this a masterpiece of strategic intimidation. While the Revolutionary Guard commanders watched their multi-million-dollar dream violently disintegrate, the United States military was quietly vacuuming up every single electronic emission, radio frequency, and encrypted protocol bouncing across the Persian Gulf. The stealth fighters and the Hawkeye did not just observe the slaughter, they traced the telemetry of those drones straight back to their hidden coastal origins. The Pentagon now possesses the exact GPS coordinates of the underground bunkers that launched the swarm, painting a massive digital bullseye on the Iranian coastline for a devastating Tomahawk cruise missile retaliation. The United States just spent a fraction of its budget to completely expose the enemy's entire network. If you were the Iranian commander tomorrow morning, would you try this suicide mission again, or would you scream for air cover? Let me know your move in the comments.